Welcome to the Macmillan Report. I'm Marilyn Wilkes, your host, and our guest is Bradley Woodworth. He is the Coordinator of Baltic Studies at Yale University, and his research interests include the modern history of the Baltic region, particularly the lands that today comprise the Republic of Estonia. His most recent publications deal with music associations and national identity in Estonian areas in the 19th century, the multi-ethnic Tsarist-era bureaucracy in the Baltic region, and the Finnish general and statesman Gustaf Mannerheim. Today we'll talk with Professor Woodworth about the Baltic Studies program at the Macmillan Center. Welcome, Professor Woodworth.
Thank you for inviting me.
Let's start with a little geography lesson. Tell us what countries comprise the Baltic area.
Yeah. So it depends on the perspective that you take when you consider this region. If you look at it as a geographic region, the Baltic Sea region, then these are the countries that geographically border on the Baltic Sea. So it's a list of 9 countries, including countries that we often think of part of Scandinavia, Finland and Sweden, or Central Europe, Germany and Poland. But if we consider it from a political perspective, a geopolitical perspective, a modern one, then the term Baltic countries or Baltic states refers to these 3 countries of Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, which had all been part of the Russian Empire but became independent in the course of World War I, and then built states, independent states that existed in the interwar period.
Okay, and what led you to be interested in studying this area of the world?
Well, it's a bit of a long story, but in brief, as an undergraduate, I spent time in Finland and learned Finnish, which was kind of odd, but it changed my life. And then I studied Estonian at the university as well, though my major field was Russian. So I knew I was interested in the peoples of that region of the world, Northeastern Europe. It's a multi-ethnic, it always has been a multi-ethnic region. And then I completed a PhD in the history of that region, writing a dissertation about social and political change in the city that is now the capital of Estonia, writing about the 19th and early 20th century, and that is Tallinn. So I was there in the early, that was the very end of the Soviet period, and it really changed my life because I knew the languages of the people spoken there. And then came back to write the doctoral dissertation 10 years later.
It must have been a very interesting time to be there with all of the...
It was more than interesting. It's made me who I am as a person, I think.
Okay. And so you've been at Yale overseeing the Baltic Studies program since 2007?
That's right.
Okay. And how
long? It's gone fast.
Yes, it goes by in a blink. So tell us about the program.
Well, the program mainly has 2 aspects. The first, first I'd like to say that the program exists because of the incredible generosity of a number of Yale alumni.
Okay.
And if I can, I would just like to
talk about it.
They know that and that Yale is very grateful for their generosity. But the first is a graduate of Yale in economics from Lithuania, 1951. His name is Joseph Kazickas. Lived a long and amazing life. Born in 1918 and just died 5 years ago. Also, Dr. Kristaps Kegi, who is a retired physician and orthopedic surgeon and has status as a retired professor at Yale. He came to this country as a little bit younger person than Mr. Kazickas. Came with his family, fleeing Soviet invasion. Graduated from Yale College and then Yale Medical School in the 1950s. And then also Dr. Juris Padeks, who also who was from Latvia and came as a young person, graduated from Yale College and the Yale Law School. And all of them have been very, he passed away several years ago, and all of them and their families, I'm especially grateful to the siblings of the Kazickas family. All of them have really made this program part of their legacy. They were all interested in continuing the study of their homelands, loving their homelands, and yet all of them loving Yale as well. So creating a Baltic Studies program was a way to combine these two loves.
That's wonderful. So let's talk about the program. What are some of the
So
aspects
we
of
have
it?
two aspects. One is a set of postdoctoral fellowships for citizens of these three countries. And then the second main aspect is we organize symposia, conferences, and bring scholars to Yale to speak to the community.
Right.
So let's see about these fellowships. They began in 2013. I went to the Baltic region in the couple of years before that to find out exactly how these donors' money could best help both Yale University and also those countries. All of them saw these fellowships as a way to bring talented young academics from the Baltic region, give them experience at Yale University in the United States, and then have that added burnishment, that added part of their careers, enable them to do even greater things back in the homeland.
How many postdocs come
So we've
every
had
year?
16 every year. Well, so we have there are two fellowships. One named after Dr. Kazitskas, who, that fellowship is for citizens of Lithuania.
Okay.
The other fellowship named after Juris Padeks is for citizens either of Latvia, where he was from, or Estonia. So the number of scholars varies a little bit every year because we have funds to have two people for the full year, but sometimes depending on the length of time that a scholar would like to stay, sometimes they only can stay for one semester.
Okay.
So we have varied between two and even four. We've had 4 this last year, and we'll have 3 in the coming year.
Okay.
All told, we have brought to Yale 16 people from the Baltic countries, 7 from Lithuania, 5 from Estonia, and 4 from Latvia.
And do they do research while they're here, and do they also teach classes?
It is only research. They
Okay.
they are research fellowships. That is what we want them to do. We want them to further their projects. Most of them are working on a book project, and there are very few requirements of the fellowship. I feel like also I'm hoping that people will watch us and also be interested in having this amazing experience. I mean, the fellows come usually not having visited Yale before, and this is an amazing place, and the things that you can do and the people that you can meet really go beyond what the fellows had even imagined could happen.
Right.
But all we require is that they give a presentation at the end of their stay about their research, and then just spend all of their time working. So it's not a teaching fellowship, just research.
Okay. And what are the scholars working on who are here now? What are their projects?
Well, we have we've had 3 that have been here earlier this year and have now left. We had Juhan Hellermann, an Estonian who is a philosopher and was working on issues of temporality, which I tried to understand from his presentation. And then we had a new PhD from Latvia named Maija Spurina, who looks at national memory in Latvia, is particularly interested in some of the darker parts of Baltic history. There was
what?
Well, there was a rise of political authoritarianism in the 1930s, and then all 3 countries, particularly Lithuania but also Latvia, were devastated by the Holocaust. All of the countries had Jewish populations, and those populations were completely decimated over the course of the war. So she studies the issues connected to what Latvia is today and its self-image in light of that past.
Okay.
And we have 2. So she was from Latvia, and we've had 2 Lithuanians. Mindaugas Šapoka, who studies a war that I think few in this country have heard of. It's called the Great Northern War. It was the first quarter of the 18th century, and it was, what could I say about it? It was a war that actually diminished Sweden's power. Sweden used to be, in the 18th century, a great world power.
Sure.
And at the same time, Russia then rose under Peter the Great to become the major power that it did in the 18th and 19th century. So he studies that war, is working on a new history. So he was here for most of the year and just left. And we have one Lithuanian still here. Her name is Monika Konrad-Niauskaite, and she studies criminality both in Lithuania in the Soviet Union. So she'll be giving a presentation in about a month.
Okay, and we're at the end of the school year, the spring semester. I'm wondering if you have identified the people who will be coming next in the fall.
We have, and actually this will be the first time we've publicly announced it.
Okay.
Although I've let the Kazitskas family know, because we have 2 Lithuanians coming in January. Stanislavas Stasiulis, who is a historian, and he'll be studying the memory of the Holocaust in Lithuania, both from the period of the war and to the present. And then we have, so he's a historian, we have a political scientist coming named Vytautas Kuokštis, and he's interested in very different issues. A political economist, really, and is interested in currency reform and how in the Baltic region the economic crises of this past decade have been dealt with. Okay. And then in the fall, we're bringing an Estonian here, Mari-Liis Jakobson, and she's interested in voting patterns of Estonians who do not live in Estonia. So in Estonia, as well as other Baltic countries, peoples who are of that ethnicity have voting rights. But she's interested in why so few of the Estonians who could participate in these extraterritorial elections do not, in fact, do so. So she's interested in sort of a worldwide phenomenon of the spread of Estonians throughout other parts of the world.
Okay, so what does the future hold for Baltic Studies? How would you like to see the program expand?
Well, in the coming 2 years, we're going to be expanding, particularly with regard to programs we're going to hold. Now that we've had 16 wonderful young scholars come to Yale this fall, in November, we're going to have our first reunion conference.
Oh, really?
Yes, we're very excited about it, because while we in the Macmillan Center have been able to meet all of these scholars and become friends with them, some of them know each other, but not that many. So what we'd really like to do is have a network of young scholars throughout the Baltic region, all of whom have had this amazing experience at Yale.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, and then at the same time we'll bring members of the families of our donors so that they can be able to meet these scholars.
Exciting.
And then in the spring we're going to hold a conference about documents that the KGB left behind. At the end of the Soviet Union, that's when all of these 3 countries regained their independence in 1990 and 1991. This past December, a fairly large tranche of documents were really discovered in Latvia and not been seriously looked at before. And a lot of these that were left by the KGB, and a lot of these documents have the names of fairly prominent people within Latvia. In other words, at least the KGB was saying, we have contacts with many of your citizens. So what we'd like to do in this conference, and it will be either January or February, is bring specialists who know these documents firsthand. A number of Latvian historians are in the process of publishing some of these documents for the first time. And then talk about the way that these societies have dealt with this dark inheritance.
Have you seen any of the documents yourself?
I haven't.
No?
I haven't. So it'll be a new area for me. My research, as you discussed in the beginning, has been with the period over 100 years ago in the Tsarist era and earlier. And then later in 2020, in the fall, I'll be collaborating with the leading Lithuanian historian Darius Staliūnas at the Lithuanian Institute of History to have a 2-day conference in which we will re-examine the issue of multi-ethnicity. This region is inherently a multi-ethnic region. Even though today these 3 countries carry the names of a particular ethnic group as nation states, the populations that have lived there have always been mixed ethnically and also religiously and linguistically. So we'd like to see if we can come up with a new way of looking at this region that is not predetermined by the ideologies of either nationalism or imposed Soviet friendship of peoples.
Right. Sounds like a lot of good things to come for Baltic Studies, so we will look forward to seeing more from you in the near future. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you very much.
Okay. For more information about Professor Woodworth and his research, please visit our website at macmillanreport.yale.edu. Be sure to join us again for another episode of the Macmillan Report, made possible through funding from the Whitney and Betty Macmillan Center for International and Area Studies at Yale. Thank you so much.
Thank you.